All right, thank you all. So like I said, welcome to the Iowa Hunger Coalition September 2023 monthly meetup. My name is Luke Elzinga. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager at the DMARC Food Pantry Network in Des Moines, and I also serve as the board chair of the Iowa Hunger Coalition. So if you're not aware, the Iowa Hunger Coalition is a membership-based 501c4 organization. We have a volunteer board of directors, no paid staff members. We do have a contract lobbyist. John and Cindy Peterson are our contract lobbyists. And really what we're about is using our collective voice to educate and advocate for policies that would eliminate food insecurity and build equitable food systems in our state. Just want to do a shout out to all of our dues paying members. Thank you all for your support. We really rely on membership dues in order to do the work that we do. So thank you all. You'll see all the logos on there. If you want to learn more about these organizations, you can visit our website and learn more about our members. So just wanted to briefly share kind of what we've been up to. We are working as our policy committee is working on finalizing our 2024 state legislative agenda. The Hunger Coalition, along with multiple other groups, I think there's about a dozen different groups, are part of the Senate File 494 implementation working group. At this point, there has really been no news from the state on an implementation timeline, and I think no news is good news. So we're just kind of playing wait and see. In my role at DMARC, we did meet with HHS earlier this week, and it sounds like they are just kind of starting that initial planning. So that asset test is not coming anytime soon. We hope to know well in advance and be able to spread the word and prepare people for that. We're also working with the Iowa Food System Coalition to do some community roundtable series, which I will share about in just a second. And then we've also just been talking with different community members, different advocacy organizations, and some legislators too. So this is a picture of me at the Iowa Hunger Summit with Representatives Barb Niff McCullough and Josh Turek, who stopped by our booth. And exciting news, we got a banner. All my Arrested Development fans out there, I couldn't help myself but include this GIF. Um, yeah, we got a banner. We're doing some tabling events and just trying to get the word out there more. So we have that, and we also have a table runner now. Sorry, I couldn't help myself but include that. So wanted to share
Luke,
just a little bit.
I'm really sorry, but absolutely, you should have included that. Good job. Well done. Well done.
Thank you, I tried. Um, so wanted to share a bit about these upcoming community roundtables on hunger and food insecurity. These are something that we've been working with the Iowa Food System Coalition and really partnering with the Iowa Farmers Union on planning some of these events. And they're essentially, the format is a free community meal followed by a discussion around what food insecurity looks like in your community, what are some of the causes of that, and how people can take action. We're also partnering with the Food System Coalition to kind of unveil their Setting the Table for All Iowans plan. So right now we have 3 of these scheduled. We're potentially looking at more to hold in 2024. The first one is this Saturday at Central Park in Grinnell. We're partnering with Grinnell Farm to Table and the Iowa Kitchen for that. Then we're having one on Monday, October 9 in the evening at Jubilee Resource Center. I believe it's connected to Jubilee UMC Church in Waterloo. We've been working with UNI Local Foods and the Northeast Iowa Food Bank on that event. And then one in Spencer on Saturday, October 14, working with the Clay County Hunger Coalition up in Spencer. So we're trying to be strategic about hosting these in areas where we're trying to build more of a network of our advocates, but also areas that may have some key legislators that we're trying to develop advocates in those areas. So feel free to reach out to me with an email if you have any questions. Myself and Tommy Hexter with the Iowa Farmers Union have really kind of been taking the lead on these. So, Farm Bill update, I had to update my slide and change highly unlikely to virtually impossible that we see a Farm Bill passed by September 30. If you're following the federal government at all right now, you know that we are kind of headed toward a potential government shutdown. And what we've heard is Farm Bill is second on their list behind all these spending bills. Um, so it's going to get a little complicated here, so bear with me. But I want to kind of explain how this will work. So we might see a continuing resolution passed for the Farm Bill, separate from those spending bills. But even if we don't see a continuing resolution passed for the Farm Bill, SNAP will stay funded. Um, some other programs, a lot of farm programs will revert back to like 1930s law if there's not a continuing resolution for the Farm Bill, but SNAP will stay funded. I think it's unlikely that they let the Farm Bill just lapse without passing anything. They'll probably be part of a larger deal, maybe funding at current levels through the end of the year, and then they'll take it up later. Um, Now, separate from the Farm Bill issue, the government shutdown, the government's got to pass all their spending bills. The House Freedom Caucus is really throwing a wrench in things in the House. Um, and so, if we do see a government shutdown come October 1st, SNAP could potentially be affected. And we do have a previous example of this. If you remember at the end of 2018, into the 2019 calendar year, we had the longest government shutdown in history, and SNAP was affected. And actually, what happened was the state of Iowa in January of 2019, near the end of the month, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to put out February's benefits in February, so they actually put them out early in January. And people got February's benefits at the end of January and then no benefits in February. At the food pantry network I work at, we actually saw a big decrease that January because people had more benefits, and then a big increase in February as those benefits ran out and people were returning to the food pantry. So we could see SNAP potentially affected. At this point, I'm not a professional. I mean, please take this with a grain of salt. I think it's likely we'll see a government shutdown. I don't think it's going to be shut down long enough to the point where SNAP would be affected. Obviously, well, things are very unknown and precarious at this point, so we'll keep you in the loop if that changes. But once all of those spending bills are passed and taken care of, and we're out of a shutdown potentially, then what we've heard is the Farm Bill is Congress's kind of next top priority. I think the optimists are hoping that a Farm Bill will be passed by the end of this calendar year, and maybe some of the realists are thinking it'll probably be the first quarter of 2024. Anything longer than that, you get so close to election season that I don't see how you pass a Farm Bill. So that's kind of the update there. Any questions at all on Farm Bill or other federal pieces? And I'll be sharing in a little bit a tool that you can use with Farm Bill advocacy as well. I guess I will also mention IHC, we do not have a kind of list of Farm Bill priorities. We've really been following the lead of national groups like the Food Research and Action Center, or FRAC. So if you're interested in checking out their Farm Bill priorities, I think it's just frac.org, and they've got a page called The Road to the Farm Bill. Really what we've heard is that the status quo for SNAP is probably going to be seen as a victory, which is what happens every 5 years, it seems like. But that's just kind of the environment right now. A few SNAP updates for Iowa. I think I shared these last month too. Cost of living adjustments for SNAP will take effect in October 2023. Those were very minor increases. The minimum benefit didn't increase at all. Some larger family sizes could see their benefits increase, but I think we're probably for most people talking a few dollars, $10, $20 for larger families. And folks should have already gotten letters or will get letters letting them know what their new benefit amount will be. Also, the 3-month time limit, also known as work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents, resumes in Iowa starting in December. And because of that 3-month limit, potentially we'd start to see an impact beginning in March of 2024. Final update I wanted to share, you may have seen this in the news, but PEBT benefits will be going out shortly in Iowa. So HHS announced on Monday that these will be going out in the mail soon, and that households should receive them before October 4. These will be automatically sent. People do not need to apply for this at all, and it will be going to K-12 students who were eligible this past school year for free and reduced price school meals, or if they lived in a community eligible district. If you're not familiar with those, FRAC actually has a tool on their website to check to see if schools are community eligible. I know I live in Des Moines. We have some schools here that, because there is a high enough percentage of the student population receiving free or reduced price meals, that everyone receives free or reduced price meals. So there could potentially be students who live in a CEP district that would otherwise not receive free or reduced price school meals that could receive this card in the mail. Really would appreciate everyone's help in getting the word out about this, so that when families see an envelope showing up in the mail that they are not expecting, they know to open it. Each student will receive a separate card. So if a family has 3 different, students in their household, K-12 students who receive free meals, they'd get 3 separate cards. And I believe it would all be in one envelope. It could be in separate envelopes. I'm not sure on that. I will share a link in the chat with the HHS page that has kind of an FAQ on this. It has a number people can call if they've lost their card or feel like they should have gotten one and did not receive one. But it's estimated that this will provide 28 million in those PEBT benefits to 240,000 students in Iowa. So any work you can do, letting people in the community know to keep an eye out for these. We want to make sure they end up, supporting feeding kids, and that people are aware of this benefit. Any questions on that? I will share that link in the chat shortly, sorry. Right, now I'm gonna do a little demo real quick right after I this in the chat, sorry. So if you have never checked out the snap map on our website before, this will, I guess, not be new. If you have, the snap map looks a little bit different now. I'm going to refresh this just to make sure it's loaded properly. But this is a tool that we have on our website that takes a look at the latest county level data for SNAP in Iowa. And all of the data is taken directly from the state's F1 SNAP report. So that comes out on a monthly basis, and we kind of plug it into this Tableau dashboard that, of course, is now giving me just a spinning circle and not loading at all. That's about typical. Usually it loads really quickly. I think it's probably just because I'm trying to screen share on Zoom. Maybe you can all go separately and try it out. Oh, Tableau Public's currently unavailable. Well, that makes me feel good that it's not my problem. Um, Actually, maybe it is loading here now. But I guess I'll share while it is loading. We have some kind of new additions added to the map, some new features. Probably a big one, and this is the one I was going to mention for just related to the Farm Bill. Actually, I'm going to try stop sharing, load this, and then share again. Um, but we've added congressional districts. One nice thing about the state of Iowa is that all of our congressional districts are drawn neatly on county lines, which makes it really easy to have those congressional districts pulled. Okay, Giselle says it's on her end too. I just perfectly timed this demo right
I
when they're
don't
doing me.
I don't think it's a you problem, Luke, and it happens to the best of us.
All right. Well, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time walking through something you can't really see, but I'll try to mention the things I was going to mention. So there is a filter on there to look by congressional district. So you can look now based on congressional district. Um, there's also a data table, which the previous version did not have, which makes it really easy to kind of look at comparisons between counties. You know, you can sort the data by, the county with the most number of individuals or the highest percent of population using SNAP. There's also a data point around the percentage change in the number of people enrolled in SNAP compared to March 2020, which we kind of call pre-pandemic. So you can see kind of how SNAP enrollment has changed in different counties since before the pandemic. And then one thing I wanted to share is, again, I'm like describing this thing you can't see, but if you scroll to the very bottom and there's this kind of Tableau frame and you go over to the download button, you can hit download and you can actually select a PDF and it will generate a PDF of whatever's on that screen. So you could do it for the entire state of Iowa. You could do it for a congressional district. You could do it just for your county, but then you could get a printout with all that data that's on there. And so this is something I think that's helpful when you're doing any outreach to federal delegation around SNAP and the Farm Bill. You can share those stats that you get from the SNAP map with them, but you could actually also, attach an email or have a printed out PDF with all that data for them. And this is updated on a monthly basis. So we just got August's numbers. Not any big changes in enrollment. We're still about at a 15-year low in terms of SNAP enrollment in Iowa. It's very slowly continuing to decrease. You can kind of see that on the map once once Tableau Public is working. So sorry everyone. Bummer that we couldn't do the demo. Um, I'm going to share my screen again now and just go back to our presentation. But I encourage you to check it out. Maybe give it a few hours. And now I wanted to share some exciting news. DMARC, where I work, is partnering with Save the Children Action Network to host an anti-hunger advocacy summit October 28th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Des Moines. We are really leaning in to the spooky Halloween theme, as you can see from the graphics here. Our keynote presenter is Eric Talkin. He is the CEO of a food bank in California, but he's also the author of the children's book, Lulu and the Hunger Monster. And we'll be sending out more information on how you can register. But are just excited to be able to bring together some speakers, do some trainings on advocacy skills and knowledge building. I will post the registration in the chat in just a second. We've kind of just done a soft launch, so again, you'll be hearing more very shortly, but kind of just wanted to give everyone just a sneak peek, save the date. It doesn't mention it here, but this is going to be held at the United Way of Central Iowa in Des Moines. So more details on that forthcoming. And now, since we didn't have the Snap Map demo, we're kind of already at our tail end of our meeting, where we try to have a discussion question that we discuss as a group. And I guess thinking about that upcoming advocacy summit, thinking that, we're in the fall, the 2024 legislative session is honestly just around the corner. What sort of trainings would be most helpful to you to prepare for the Iowa legislative session? And I am going to stop sharing and open it up to the group. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand. But just again, want to hear, and I can post this in the chat, what sort of trainings would be most helpful for you leading up to the legislative session in order to be a more effective advocate, more comfortable talking with legislators, more comfortable talking about SNAP and other nutrition programs.
Hey Luke, this is Caitlin. Something that I think we've found increasingly important as we talk about advocacy is those like personal relationships and really developing relationships with legislators. And I think that's always kind of a mystifying thing to figure out. How do you get in touch with these people? How do you figure out when are their town halls, when they're going to be back in their districts? Yeah, and just kind of how do you build that relationship so that way going into session you may have an ally on your side to help push your agenda a little bit. Also, I did have a question on the summit. Do you have like a cap on registration or an anticipated number of folks that you'd want this to be shared with? I'm thinking to maybe share it out through the Iowa Academy as well, just knowing that we have people that we're trying to engage and get more involved in policy.
Yeah, I think our planned attendance is about 50 to 75. So I'm happy to follow up with you, Caitlin, though, because I can get you, some materials for like an email invite.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Hi. I have a thought that might not resonate with other people. But I am interested more in like the history. So like if these elected representatives have been in their leadership positions for a decade or 2 years or whatever it might be, I feel like there's something about being able to come in knowledgeable about what their record is, or being able to come in knowledgeable about like, hey, we saw this increase in 2015. And then like you said earlier, Luke, that like we saw this happen in this year and there was a budget cut, but then we saw this increase. We have all these stories about how policy has affected some of our on the ground things, but just to like walk into that meeting and be like, I kind of get like what's happened with SNAP in the last decade, and I can speak intelligently to that. The history lesson might not be people's favorite if really like what we're going in with is just like our own on the ground experience, what we're advocating for this year. And then, end up like, oh, you like lived in Pella? Well, let me tell you about another tulip festival. And then that's half the conversation. It is that relationship building. But I don't know. That's just sort of something I'm hungry for, is more of the history and being able to feel like a bit of an expert walking in.
Thank you both. I think those are both great suggestions, and I could see how they could be maybe merged into maybe one kind of training on connecting and understanding the history and background of a legislator. So really great ideas. Thank you. Let's keep them coming.
Yeah, I think kind of along your lines of like history, maybe it kind of maybe ties the two together, but like sort of the history of that legislator or some of our key legislators, and knowing like what policies they've supported in the past, what some of their priorities are. I think that helps when you go into a meeting too, that you're walking in knowing this person really cares about, healthcare because they have maybe XYZ personal connection, or they've been supportive of a policy in the past that would support a similar line of thinking. So yeah, even just like the history of a particular important legislators might be helpful too.
I think from a training perspective, I think like a myth busting vibe one could be really interesting and helpful. I've dealt mostly with like local like boards of supervisors, but when you can say, well, actually, this is what is happening, not what is being spoon fed to you by XYZ news entertainment outlet, that is very helpful and powerful, because then you're able to position yourself as someone who has knowledge based in fact, and then you can more easily leverage those relationships you all were talking about building.
I think along those same lines, not just having that myth busting, but sort of condensing it down into because I think some of the friction happens where it's really easy to say, well, if you want to buy stuff, work, and that's a sentence, everybody gets it. But then when you say, well, based on your income, and it depends on how many people in your family, and so it's a complicated program, and it doesn't condense down well to talking points to refute those things. So I think maybe like a workshop in making sort of pithy retorts, I guess. I don't know, that's me like trying to sell the workshop or whatever, but like just to have some sort of like succinct way to refute those, especially because as you can tell, I can talk forever and give you all the details, but people don't want to hear all that. They want, top line, and they want to understand it. And that's the difficulty, I think, is translating that into something that easily communicates how that myth is not accurate, or at least suggest like, wait, it's more complicated than that, and you shouldn't just take that at this simple dismissal at face value.
You, Casey and Alicia, both really good thoughts. I'm thinking too, like thinking also about legislators' kind of background and history. I don't know if anyone has ever done any like trainings on communicating to people's values, but it can be really helpful in identifying your kind of target legislators' values and communicating in a way that is going to resonate with them. So I know this person is passionate about children. When I'm talking about SNAP, I'm going to underscore the impact on child nutrition that SNAP has. So I think that could be a potential good connecting training too, of not just understanding, the legislator and their policy history and voting record, but like what is going to resonate most with them and how can you be the most effective advocate in communicating. So I'm writing down lots of notes. Thank you, everyone. Any other thoughts?
I'm gonna pause for a second in case somebody else has a new idea. I have one more idea, aside from the one in the chat box, but the Wallace Center does like national trainings and communities of practice around local food systems. And they hosted a training recently around LFPA advocacy. And I think it's recorded. So that was really great. One of the focus areas was around getting comfortable sharing your personal narrative, like your story about why this work matters to you. And they gave us a little prep, and like I think they gave us 8 or 10 minutes to journal. And I was able to write out something in that 10 minutes that was like, okay, I actually just tapped into something that I haven't been able to articulate, that I think is really important for, like, if we want to tap into their values or align them with our own, I think we have to be able to tell our own story going into it of like, why do we care? Like authentically. So like for me, I didn't grow up experiencing food insecurity. So I need to be able to share like why this is a value, why this is so important. I'm not going to share the whole story, especially because there's a lawnmower going in my neighbor's yard. But just being comfortable sharing that story, I think it would be helpful.
Thanks, Giselle. Any other thoughts? So I'm going to pose a question. Are people more interested in trainings around the kind of relationship, advocacy-based communications, or more interested in here's the ins and outs of all these different policies? Because what I'm hearing is it's more on the communication side. And I think honestly, as advocates, we don't all need to know all the ins and outs of all the different policies. Like it's good to have some knowledge and understanding. But as long as a few of us do, like what we really need is people across the state that are sharing their stories and why it impacts them with their legislators, and less statistics, so yeah, thank you all for your feedback. This is really good.
Luke, this is Cindy, and the one thing I've noticed is with our different clients is people are sometimes afraid to email the legislature thinking they're saying the wrong things. And so I think if we make it clear that here are the bullet points, the first paragraph should be who you are, what you do, and why you're passionate about this subject, and then hit the bullet points, because I don't like form letters, but we have to get them over the hump of being afraid to talk to legislators or email them as afraid they're going to say the wrong thing and it's going to mess it up. So getting over that fear factor, I think, is important too.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. We've gotten comments as well, not about being afraid to email legislators, but not having desire to email them because they maybe are a different political affiliation than what you believe in. And so maybe even some, I don't know, maybe this ties into the myth busting, but just talking about how it is important that you're emailing both sides of the aisle, not just who you're affiliated with. So maybe some of that weaves in somewhere to one of those ideas.
Yes, great point, Caitlin. And I will just reiterate, it's very important that all of our legislators here from, no matter their political affiliation, they pay attention to the amount of emails and communications they're getting on a particular subject. So even if you think that they're not going to be in agreement with you, you still need to let them know. And the alternative is they don't get any communications, and then they say, "Oh, we didn't hear from anyone that this was an issue." So, it's really important to reach out to everyone, no matter their voting history, whether you think they're going to support what you're asking them to or not. So, but yeah, that is a great topic for Mythbusters. Thanks, Caitlin. There is nothing else. I apologize again. I was planning on spending a little more time doing that snap map demo. So feel free to explore it on your own once it's working. And always reach out with any questions you have. Maybe I'll try to just kind of record a video walkthrough of some of those things on my own and send it out, so people can kind of see a demo if they want. But any other final thoughts that people wanted to share? Any updates or really exciting news that you just are dying to share with this group? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. IHC board, please stay on for our board meeting. But yeah, everyone else, thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next month. Keep an eye out for an email with more details on the registration for that advocacy summit. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to stop recording now.